Have you ever paused to consider who truly dictates what we desire, what we find beautiful, what's definitively in right now? It's a subtle power, isn't it? Often hidden in plain sight. Today, we're peeling back the layers on a rumor that's, well, far more than just typical business chatter. It's the potential acquisition of Condé Nast, and specifically Vogue, by Jeff Bezos. And if this plays out, it's just something profound, something beyond just media ownership. It's about potentially commanding desire itself. Our journey into this fascinating possibility is guided by a really insightful article from Mark Abergel. He's a luxury executive based right there in Paris. And he argues this isn't simply a media play at all. He sees it as a bold move to become the architect of cultural influence.
Yeah, what's truly fascinating about Abergel's perspective is how he frames this whole rumored acquisition. He doesn't mince words. He calls it the biggest cultural power grab of the decade, a direct bid for nothing less than the throne of taste. It really signals a critical shift,
Yeah.
where some of the most powerful tech titans are no longer just focused on market share. They seem to be actively eyeing cultural influence as their next, maybe crucial frontier.
That really sets the stage, doesn't it? So our mission today is to truly unpack the massive stakes this holds for the entire luxury world. We'll explore this fascinating clash between what Abergel calls old and new power, and consider how the traditional luxury titans might, well, fight back for their very sovereignty. Okay, let's dive in. So for well over a century, Vogue has operated as this quiet yet incredibly powerful sculptor of desire. How has it managed to be, as Abergel puts it, the unseen architect of what the world deems beautiful and relevant, setting the cultural clock for so long? What moments really highlight its influence for you?
Well, Vogue has effectively functioned as a kind of cultural nation of style and taste. That's Abergel's term. It's acted almost like a sovereign power, dictating trends, signaling status for generations. I mean, think about its pivotal role. From the very first color cover back in 1932, that was a huge leap, technically and artistically, to culturally significant moments like the first cover featuring a woman of color in '66, or the first male cover in 1970, and of course, those iconic 1990 supermodel covers that truly defined an era.
Right, they really capture the zeitgeist.
Exactly. And even in moments of global crisis, like its really moving COVID-19 covers honoring frontline workers, Vogue used its platform not just to reflect fashion, but to shape the very image of the moment itself. This wasn't just about publishing, it was about defining things. In fact, Abergel points out that when Sam Newhouse bought Condé Nast way back in 1959, it was clearly a strategic purchase of influence, not just a business decision.
Influence itself as the asset. And so facing off against this established cultural power, we have Jeff Bezos. He's already revolutionized commerce, that's undeniable. How did he manage to conquer what people call the last mile of commerce?
He did it through just sheer logistical dominance, didn't he? Think of Amazon's delivery bots, those enormous warehouses stretching across continents, the vast data centers, and of course the sprawling Prime network that ensures almost anything you could possibly desire arrives at your door in hours, sometimes minutes. Bezos perfected the art of getting products to you almost instantly. It's a marvel of operational efficiency.
Okay, so if he's mastered the last mile of commerce, what does Abergel suggest Bezos is really aiming for by potentially acquiring Vogue? What is this last mile of culture he might be seeking to command?
Yeah, this is the core of Abergel's argument. He argues Bezos isn't buying Vogue for its, balance sheet. That's not the point. His ambition is far grander. He wants to command the very channel through which meaning itself is delivered. Imagine leveraging that same infrastructure that perfected one-click shopping to now engineer, quote, one-click desirability and aspiration.
Wow. One-click desire.
It's a powerful idea. This isn't about controlling a physical newsstand like Sam Newhouse did. That's old world. Abergel vividly calls it owning the digital loom where the fabric of global taste is woven, stitch by algorithmic stitch.
That's quite an image.
It is. And the stakes, as he emphasizes, are infinitely higher because the battlefield has shifted. It's moved from paper to the fundamental infrastructure of culture itself.
Now here's a truly strategic move Abergel highlights. The brilliance, potentially, of retaining Anna Wintour. He calls it a strategic masterstroke, envisioning Anna as Bezos's cultural general. How does her continued presence, but now backed by a tech empire, fundamentally shift the landscape for Vogue and, well, the world of taste?
It's incredibly smart if it happens. It signals continuity and authority, right? Anna Wintour is the reigning empress of Vogue. Her presence ensures that the traditional power, the perceived authority, stays intact. But now, imagine her wielding that power with the unprecedented machinery of a global tech empire behind her.
It amplifies everything.
Exactly. And it's not just a cold business decision either. As you hinted earlier, Jeff Bezos, Lauren Sanchez, and Anna Wintour, they've already been seen sharing front-row conversations for years. So this rumored acquisition might just formalize an already existing alignment of influence and maybe ambition.
Let's deepen this idea of the cultural nation. You mentioned it regarding Vogue. But how does Abergel apply this concept to the traditional luxury maisons themselves, like LVMH, Chanel, Hermès, Kering? What makes them more than just companies in his view?
Oh, he insists they are far more. He describes them as vessels of Europe's soft power. It's quite poetic. They don't just export products, they export entire systems of ritual, taste, and culture. That's the key. These maisons operate almost as sovereign actors, each with its own distinct laws, codes, rituals, meticulously built and refined over, generations. They are, in essence, self-contained cultural ecosystems, really powerful ones.
Okay, that makes me think back. Many luxury brands, including some heavy hitters from Kering and LVMH, they once kind of flirted with Amazon, right? Only to famously pull back. Why did LVMH's CFO, Jean-Jacques Guillaume, state so emphatically back in 2016 that Amazon's business model does not fit with LVMH full stop? What was the core incompatibility there?
Yeah, that was a big moment. The core issue was Amazon's mass market ethos, its very nature. LVMH and others too felt that the platform essentially flattened exclusivity. Imagine, like Abergel suggests, a $5,000 handbag appearing on the same page, maybe even in the same search results as, bulk detergent and phone chargers.
Yeah, not quite the luxury experience.
Not at all. That adjacency fundamentally undermined the perceived exclusivity, the luxury, the mystique they worked so hard to build. It diluted their brand.
Right. And this is precisely where Abergel's analysis really shines, isn't it? He argues Bezos isn't repeating that specific mistake. How is the strategy different this time, according to Abergel?
Precisely. Abergel points out that this time, Bezos isn't simply asking for a seat at the table. That was the old approach, maybe. Now, he says, Bezos is potentially buying the table, the dining hall, and perhaps most importantly, the seating chart that Vogue and Anna Wintour command so well.
Buying the seating chart.
Yeah. This isn't about a retail partnership anymore. It's about outright ownership of a critical piece of cultural infrastructure. It's a fundamental shift in strategy, from integration maybe to assimilation.
That really highlights the potential danger for luxury, then. If this acquisition actually proceeds, how does Abergel envision Vogue's editorial lens changing? What happens when culture merges so completely with commerce in this new model?
Well, the distinction, Abergel warns, could essentially dissolve. It might just disappear. Under the scenario, Vogue wouldn't just cover culture. It would actively merge with commerce until the two become, indistinguishable. The editorial lens wouldn't be purely aesthetic anymore. It risks transforming into a sophisticated targeting engine where aspiration becomes a data point and taste is optimized for conversion.
So the traditional church and state separation, gone.
Potentially, yes. The integrity of editorial content, that idea of it being separate from advertising, could be irrevocably compromised.
Which connects directly to Abergel's broader point about cultural infrastructure. What are the implications if one entity, like a Bezos-owned Condé Nast, truly owns the authority to define desirability? What does it mean for luxury maisons to risk becoming, as he puts it, vendors inside someone else's cultural nation of taste?
It's a stark warning. Abergel argues that today, cultural influence is no longer just commentary, it's infrastructure. That's a key takeaway. So if Bezos owns the authority to define desirability, he could literally bend the market at will. Think about that power. This means that these powerful luxury maisons risk becoming mere vendors inside someone else's cultural nation of taste. They'd be forced to negotiate from occupied territory, as Abergel phrases it.
Occupied territory.
Yes, their autonomy, their very ability to define their own value and narrative would be severely diminished. It changes everything for their sovereignty and influence.
So, okay, with all of this swirling around, what does this actually mean for the luxury world? What's the path forward? Will these powerful cultural nations, LVMH, Kering, Chanel, Hermès, will they fight for their sovereignty or will they kind of surrender it? Abergel presents a pretty stark choice, doesn't he?
He really does. He says they must either act like a true cultural nation and actively reclaim the ability to shape desire directly, or the alternative is they remain essentially a product conglomerate, just renting attention from big tech platforms. There's really no middle ground in his scenario. Abergel proposes what he calls a third renaissance for luxury. He even characterizes it as a potential new Cold War for
A
taste.
Cold War for taste.
Yeah, and he's quite direct about it. Luxury cannot counter this with another seasonal campaign. That's not enough. Instead, he says it must rearm, but not with ads, with custodians of its cultural capital, by building what he calls a sovereign stack for culture and taste.
A sovereign stack for culture and taste. Okay, that sounds like a powerful concept. Tell us more. What are the key components of this stack? How would they actually help luxury brands reclaim their influence in this vision?
All right, the first component is what Abergel calls embassies as owned stage. Think of these as narrative sanctuaries, physical spaces, digital spaces, but entirely under the Maison's control. No intermediaries. Places like the Louis Vuitton Foundation in Paris, which is stunning, or Chanel's new Arts and Culture magazine. And LVMH has its upcoming Osaka 2025 Cultural Showcase. Abergel sees these not as just, campaigns or marketing. He sees them as monuments, high-fidelity spaces where story, culture, and commerce are composed together. A single harmonious score. It's about complete creative control.
Right, creating their own controlled environments for storytelling, total control. What's the next piece of this sovereign stack?
Second are rituals as sequencing. These are carefully planned, intentional moments designed to shape the cultural calendar, but and this is key, they begin exclusively with the Maison's most devoted clients before the public ever sees them. The goal here isn't just chasing, say, 1 billion views immediately. It's about creating authorship that makes 1 billion views matter later on.
So building exclusivity and anticipation first.
Exactly. It's about shaping the narrative from the inside out, rewarding the core audience first.
That makes sense. It strengthens the core. What about preserving the legacy, the enduring value?
That brings us to the third component, sacred texts and archives as canon.
Mm-hmm.
These are the long horizon investments, things designed to outlast any single season or fleeting trend. We're talking about foundations, salons, artist commissions, permanent collections, things that become cultural assets immune to algorithmic decay, as he puts it.
Immune to algorithmic decay. I like that.
Me too. The canon, Abergel argues, is the moat. It protects their legacy and enduring worth. A prime example he cites is Chanel's new 250-page Arts and Culture magazine, curated by Yana Peel, commissioning huge voices like Tilda Swinton, Rufik Anadol. This isn't just a magazine, he calls it a powerful act of cultural sovereignty. It archives artistic collaborations while simultaneously building new ones. It's playing the long game.
So they're building their own enduring historical record, their own canon. Okay. And finally, how do they ensure their message reaches audiences directly? How do they bypass these algorithmic gatekeepers we're talking about?
That's where the fourth component comes in, diplomats as ambassadors. These are sovereign voices, think, authors, artists, archivists, designers, people who carry the Maison's DNA directly to audiences, intentionally bypassing those algorithmic choke points, going direct. Abergel gives a great example. Pharrell Williams, who's Louis Vuitton's men's creative director. Imagine him producing an exclusive documentary, say, on his Met Gala exploration of Black dandyism, but making it available only to LV clients first.
Creating exclusive cultural content.
Exactly. That's not just content creation. That's cultural authorship in its purest form, Abergel says. It forges desire from the inside out by controlling the narrative and the distribution of their most significant cultural contributions.
So this really isn't just about branding anymore, is it? It sounds much deeper. It's about protecting what Harvard media historian Heidi Legg calls the myth itself, that enduring worth of a brand found within its archive, that accumulated cultural capital from decades of taste-making that keeps influencing us, even when we forget the individual magazine issues.
Absolutely. And to put it concisely, to sum up the potential threat, in this possible future Abergel outlines, Vogue wouldn't just recommend, it would decide. An algorithmically timed feature, perfectly synchronized with a product drop, could potentially make or break a Maison's quarter. The cover becomes a kind of currency. Luxury, which once stood as this sovereign cultural force, risks becoming essentially a tenant in Bezos' potentially expanding empire of taste.
Which really brings us to a final thought, a question for you, our listener. In an age where AI can now generate taste on demand or something that looks like it, Abergel suggests that maybe human-led myth-making is the last true luxury. What needs protecting now isn't just distribution channels. It's the very myth that defines these brands, their story, their soul. Unless luxury actively builds its own canon, its own enduring cultural infrastructure. Abergel implies it won't matter how beautiful a collection is. It might only matter if it's ultimately part of Bezos' canon. So what stands out to you about this potential new Cold War for taste?